And we're joined from South Carolina by Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of the Global Foreign Policy Center, to discuss the Chequers Summit and its wider implications. Mr. Russell, thank you for joining us here on In Focus. Now, what does this Science and Technology Pact reveal about the health of the US-UK special relations?
Well, thanks for having me, as always, Mark. Good to see you. The Chequers meeting was significant in so many ways. When it comes to the partnership, when it comes to the special relationship, I think that the Chequers meeting between Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump was significant in the fact that it does solidify the fact that even the differences, whether it is tariffs, trades, whether it's differences in the ideology of Gaza and Ukraine, regardless, that the special relationship is still there. It's like a family. You know, you go to a family dinner, you may not always like what your family's saying, but the reality is you still love them. This is the same situation, and that's the special relationship that we have with Great Britain, and we saw that come out of Chequers today.
Well, it's actually Henny, not Mark, today, but Mr. Russell, do you think that this visit, Trump goes back to the UK, to the States, with a better image as a victor, as a result of the economic trade? Do you feel that he looks better in front of his Republican Party?
I think that's unclear. I mean, you know, we've got to realize something here, and this is something that we've noticed, over the past few weeks, is there is zero consistency with Donald Trump's foreign policy, particularly when it comes to Ukraine, particularly when it comes to the Gaza question. What we're seeing now, particularly with our EU partners and the Ukraine question, is our EU partners are starting to use the diplomatic Jedi mind tricks. These are not the droids you seek. And what they're doing is they overwhelm him with pomp and circumstance, which the Crown is very good at doing, and Sir Keir Starmer is tapping into that. But they're using the Jedi mind tricks of you're so great, you're so important, and yet they're still getting their message across. And what that does is that gets Donald Trump to kind of see it their way. As we saw today, the back and forth just on the answers that he gave during press questions on Ukraine were all over the place. But what this does is this does solidify the EU presence through pomp and circumstance in getting Donald Trump to see it their way, because then Donald Trump says, oh, they must respect me because look at what they're doing. I have military bands and I have state dinners for the second time. They know what they're doing and they're playing him, just like Vladimir Putin played him in Alaska last month.
Well, practically speaking, he went back to the US with an agreement and a trade deal, basically artificial intelligence and nuclear components. So do you think that they will reshape the strategic cooperation between the two nations practically?
That's actually a really good question, Mark. And I got to tell you something. The reality is that what we're seeing is a situation where the dynamics of AI, we saw a big AI push with the UAE and Qatar and Saudi during the time. That seems to be a cornerstone for the foreign future investment of US and our trading partners, is that investment into AI. With the UK then becomes the AI gateway to the rest of Europe for both the US, and because of the proximity of other Commonwealth nations in the Western Hemisphere to the US, that kind of serves as a two-way road to the AI sector in the UK. So this does look like a win for both sides. It's something that Donald Trump can come back with. The Microsoft deal was a very, very big economic win for US and US tech companies, particularly obviously for Microsoft. But there's other underlying there's other underlying messages. For example, the Boeing agreement is kind of a slap in the face to EADS, who make Airbus. UK's got a vested interest in Airbus, yet they're starting to look at strategic partnerships with Boeing. That's a big win for the US and a big win for Donald Trump on his economic policies when it comes to the UK.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of underlying messages and subtext about this deal, do you feel that this deal is primarily economic, or does it also strengthen geopolitical alignment against rivals like China or Russia?
Again, I think it's too early to tell. Here's where we've got to really dig deep on that analysis, and that's why I don't think anybody's going to be able to truly answer it right now. Within the past 3 months, we saw the UK sign the biggest trade deal with India during Modi's state visit to the UK many weeks ago. India, obviously a key component of the BRICS alliance. Well, that kind of gives and pushes the alignment towards BRICS, thus Russia, China, India, and Brazil. We see this deal, the big winner here, just to kind of put it into a pretty little bow, is the big winner here is the UK, because now Britain has the ability to solidify trade and tech talks with the US, a long-term trade deal based on tech, AI, nuclear power, aerospace, defense systems, and yet has a general trading option with a BRICS alliance member, that being India. That's going to be the big win here. But from a Trump foreign policy and economic policy aspect, it does look like this could be a solid win for Trump.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's look on the British side. How does Starmer benefit politically from this partnership, given the criticism at home over trade frictions with Trump?
Well, quite frankly, with all due respect to the Prime Minister, Sir Keir Starmer has bigger problems. I mean, he's got a political problem. The economics are going to work regardless of who's in play at number 10 Downing Street and who's got power inside of Whitehall. What they've got to look at is, Keir Starmer could use this as a win. If I was advising Labor right now, I would be telling them to look at this as a win and solidify their position as the true special relationship. Heck, I'd be making political ads that show Sir Keir Starmer and Donald Trump talking with Starmer in the picture about the great special relationship and how great the ties are with the UK and Washington. That being the case, it's going to be interesting to see, can Keir Starmer make the economic argument, and is that enough to overtake the political challenges that he's faced between having to sack his ambassador in Washington, his deputy prime minister, and a complete reshuffle of his cabinet? That's going to be a trick for Labor and Starmer.
Well, do you think the domestic debates over tariffs or interest rates and the cabinet reshuffle could complicate the agreement's actual rollout?
No, because I think no matter who's in power, whether it's the Tories, whether it's Nigel Farage and Reform, or whether it's Sir Keir Starmer and Labor, everybody's going to have to corner in on the idea that the trade agreement with Washington, this particular set of agreements on the future of what is going to affect the larger global interconnected economy, AI, aerospace, defense systems, technology, that deal is going to be universal. Regardless of power of party, everybody's going to have to accept it. Everybody's going to have to run with it. And it's only going to make the relationship better between London and Washington.
Then what is the exact role or expected role that the private sector might play in shaping policy outcomes from this pact?
Well, the private sector this is basically private sector sub-diplomacy. It's not a mistake that we're seeing key technology players like Microsoft engage. And it gives them a foothold into a gateway into the larger economic portals of the EU and in that part of the world. It's no mistake that we're seeing Boeing engage. Boeing's had a lot of challenges and they've lost market share to Airbus. What this does is this gives a large scale diplomatic push for both sides, and it gives a large scale public affairs win and diplomatic win for Boeing against its major rival and in their backyard. So, what we're seeing is the private sector is becoming a key component of this new economic diplomacy that we're coming. Look, Donald Trump loves this stuff. He loves being able to come back. He loves being able to come back to the United States with deals. He did that with his trip to the Gulf states. Look at how much they came back, $1 trillion worth of deals. He's coming back from his UK trip. He's got hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of deals. Those deals are negotiated at heart by the private sector, but it gives a transference win to the administration.
Mm-hmm. Well, given the current relationship between the US and NATO and the European Union, do you feel that the deal suggests a re-anchoring of the special UK-US relationship in innovation rather than just defense or finance?
I mean, is the relationship between Donald Trump and Keir Starmer like Bill Clinton and Tony Blair? No. Is it George Bush and Barack Obama and David Cameron? No. But what it does show that the special relationship is timeless. And that is the message that comes out of these series of meetings over the past 72 hours. It's that timelessness. It's that concrete special relationship that kind of gives almost a level of stability to U.S. foreign policy, regardless of who's in power, which is a good thing, because the one thing, especially during a Trump administration, we need is some sort of semblance of consistency and stability, which is not something that we usually associate with Trump foreign policy.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Justin Thomas Russell, the Executive Director of the Global Foreign Policy Center, thank you for shedding light on how this new accord could define the next chapter in the US-UK cooperation. Trump's visit to Britain shows how diplomacy can be both theatrical and of substance, a blend of royal spectacle, policy negotiation and public dissent. Whether the new tech deal becomes a cornerstone or a footnote will depend on sustained political will on both sides of the Atlantic. That's all for this episode of In Focus. I'm Henny Saif. Thank you for watching and we'll see you next time.